The Creeper is back with another round of ghastly tales in Creepshow 2. There's 3 stories this time out, with one in particular that's achieved a bit of a cult status over the years. Only one way to find out if we agree. Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always is my fellow creep, Tim.
Ooh, where's Peach Fuzz when you need him?
This is a horror movie podcast. It is October. We're doing tons of episodes. It's the October-thon, and today we're finally getting to a sequel to a movie we did in 2019. In 2019,
Oh, jeez.
during October, 5 years ago, we did Creepshow. So today we finally do Creepshow 2. Luckily, it's hardly one that we have to remember the events of the previous movie, since they're both anthology films, so it's fine. But yeah, it took us a while.
I remember we did it for an October-thon, but if you would have asked me, I would have been like, oh, like what, 2022 maybe? But 2019, dear Lord.
Yes, it's been a while. It's been a while. But yeah, I had never seen Creepshow 2 before, so this was an interesting trip. Because I had seen Creepshow 1 before we did it, but Creepshow 2 I had just never gotten around to. So this was nice to finally cross it off the list. And before I hear cries from the back row saying, but what about Creepshow 3? Look, maybe someday, but it's supposed to be trash. So, it was much later on.
Yeah, if you want to hear me just absolutely lose my shit, we can do that movie.
Yeah, Tim's very sensitive when it comes to Creepshow 3.
Very passionate.
upsets him. So, yeah, welcome to the show. We'll start spoiler-free. Actually, well, I suppose we'll do a couple of general thoughts, but I feel like there's not going to be much of a spoiler-free. This is the problem we always encounter with anthology movies, is it's very hard to do like a blanket spoiler-free when you have like different stories that all have different plots to talk about. But regardless, you can get bonus content over at Patreon or via YouTube membership. I'll tell you more about that at the end of the show. So, yeah, it's an anthology movie. This one's got 3 stories and a little bit of a wraparound, but mostly the 3 stories, all horror themed, of course. And George Romero did write the scripts for this based on Stephen King stories, but did not come back to direct it.
Only the middle one is a Stephen King story.
Well, I mean, the opening titles just said based on Stephen King stories.
Right.
So I just read that as fact.
Oh, yeah.
As foolish as that might be you have done, but yes. Well, that's good. Well, Stephen King will be quite proud then that he didn't write the first one, so that's okay. So, yeah. I mean, just as far as general feelings go, I mean, story 1, trash. Story 2, pretty fun. Although, I feel like the internet might have overhyped it for me a little bit, because I've heard a lot of people over the years say, oh, The Raft is such a special anthology story. And then the third story is not quite as good, but still okay. A little bit repetitive, but yeah. So overall, it's an okay movie with one standout segment. On you go, Tim.
Oh, no, yeah. I mean, I'm basically just going to echo the same thing. Like, yeah, I think to me, this is a definition of like a mixed bag. Like, first of all, I forget how many stories are in the first one, but it feels like there's so much more. Yeah,
there's like 6 or 7 of what I said in the first one.
Yeah, that's actually quite meaty. And then, yeah, so it feels like this one already, it's kind of at a disadvantage because it's just like so much less. But yeah, the first one is just oof. I mean, there's gonna be a lot to talk about that, but just, I mean, the story itself is not good, but then just, yeah. Obviously, it's aged very poorly, and yeah, it's funny. It's probably like the absolute low of, like the Creepshow. Yeah, I guess I'll say franchise, but really, I'm only talking about these first 2 movies. Like to me, the third one is pretty much non-existent. But yeah, like the first story is just really the absolute worst, and then the second one, yeah, honestly, I mean, I understand the overhype, but I think that second one is still really good, and possibly, if not the best, definitely one of the best, like out of all the stories, from 1 and 2. And then yeah, the third one is just very like, it's fine, it's okay. So it's, I don't know, I do think it's kind of interesting that this one is all over the place, while the first one I thought was very consistent. And then if people remember when we talked about the first one, like that's just one of my all-time favorite like horror movies. Like I just love the campiness, the over the top. It has so many things that's like in my horror DNA. Like it's George Romero, Stephen King. They're all paying homage to, these like EC like grisly horror stories, which I love. And like the first one was just such like a perfect recipe to me. Like I know it's not like everyone's like favorite, but it really sings to me. And then I mean, I still hold this one in like somewhat high regard because the second one's good, and then the third one is like good enough, and then even like the wraparound and stuff, I have some fun stuff, but it's really all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, I like the first movie. I don't hold it in as such high regard as you do. I think in general you just like anthology movies more than I do. It's a fun time, and I do think the middle story in this is pretty good. It's not perfect though. I do have one question once we're into spoilers. That
I mean, there is one pretty upsetting part about it, but yeah.
Well, it's not even that it's upsetting. It just comes out of nowhere. Like it's just like if that's what the story was building up to, that'd be fine. But it just kind of like, oh, all of a sudden this is the thing. Anyway, that's for spoilers, which we're about to get into, to be honest, because there's not really much more to be said without actually starting to talk about the things. Just to go back and clarify, the first movie had 5 stories plus the wraparound, so that's where I was getting 6 from. But
gotcha.
Yeah. So,
which I mean, I guess like it doesn't feel like that's that much more than this movie, but I don't know. It really feels like a lot less.
Yeah, well, this was going to have 5, and then he ended up cutting 2 for budget or time or whatever it was. I know one of the stories that they were going to do ended up being Tales from the Dark Side, the movie.
Oh, okay, interesting. Oh yeah, because that was a George Romero movie.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't know that, Tim.
No, I did know it. I just literally said it.
No, about the story. Not,
gotcha.
Of course. Why would I say that about George Romero director? But you're the one who just said that.
No, I think I have heard that before. So that's right. I just wasn't automatically thinking of it right now.
Or following the conversation, apparently.
Right. Okay.
All right, so we'll just have to say spoilers so we can get into this and talk about the different stories and whatnot. And we'll talk about the wraparound as well at the end. But yeah, the first story here, so spoilers, right? I made that clear. Spoilers now. First story is called Old Chief Woodenhead. Now, this has actually several actors in it that are recognizable in one way or another. You've got George Kennedy, who most people will probably know from Naked Gun.
Yes.
He playing this old store owner in a dead town. He's not doing very well, but he's got an old Native American kind of statue or whatever you want to call it out front of the store, and is apparently very nice to the Native American community that's nearby. And the first thing that really felt weird about the story to me, before we even get to what the story is, which by the way is one of my complaints, is that it takes forever before we actually get to what makes it a Creepshow story.
Oh yeah, cut this in half and add another story, please. Like this takes so long.
There's so much of this which is just like George Kennedy talking about how he wants to not sell the store and he wants to keep doing it because he has good intentions and his wife's. But so this is the first thing that rubbed me the wrong way, is that it felt weird that the wife, because it was like, because normally in a story I would expect you introduce a character who has maybe a problematic view of a group of people, right? In this case, Native Americans. And his wife would be saying something like, oh, you're being too harsh or something like that. But this is the opposite of that, where he's being really nice about them and the wife's going, oh, you're too kind to these people. And I'm like, what? What's the moral of this story? And obviously, by the time you actually get into the story, it doesn't even matter. Like, all of this is basically irrelevant because it actually ends up being something... There's, it's 3 young guys hold up their store at gunpoint, and one of the guys happens to be the nephew of the local Native American chief, and that's problem number 2, is that we have a recognizable actor in this role, actually. We have Holt McElhenney, who is from Mindhunter. You might have recently seen him in The Iron Claw. So he's been some stuff over the years. I like him a lot. And I was like, wait, he looks familiar. Then it clicked who he was. And then I went, wait a minute. I thought, I don't think this actor's Native American, and yet he's playing a Native American person. Something very odd about this.
I mean, and I'm sorry, is this the nephew or the chief that you're talking about?
The nephew. The one that's got a gun.
Nephew. Oh, okay.
Right, yeah, the leader of the little gang. Right.
Okay.
Right. So he not only is that just problematic on its own, but the wig that they've got him in is so distractingly awful. And not only is it bad, but he keeps drawing attention to it by talking about
how... it's a story point.
Yeah, he keeps saying how great his hair is. He says, oh, it took me ages to grow this hair. And I'm like, no, it didn't. It did not. It did no such thing. There was no growing of any kind here.
It's going to get him to Hollywood, and it's going to get him paid and laid.
He just won't shut up about how great his hair is. And so not only does this stand up or this stick up kind of situation spring out of nowhere, which would be fine if it was really early in the story, but we spent so long before we got there.
And sorry, but like, I think a big problem too about all that stuff before that point is it just does not feel like Creepshow at all to me, because usually like Creepshow, we're focused on very unlikable people, because this is like, or people that are usually engaged in some like dirty activities or something, because usually like the whole point of it is like, oh, you kind of have these awful people but then they do something bad, but then they get like their just desserts, kind of usually like some type of ironic death or something in the end. But
so the start of the story then should be the 3 gang members getting ready to go in, like them outside psyching themselves up and like sort of like going in to break into the place. Maybe do one quick little cutaway to the couple to make us see, oh, they're a nice old couple, and that's it. That's all you need.
Instead, it's focusing so much on them, and it's like so trinkly, like it feels like, I don't know, some like, oh gee shucks, like family movie from the 50s or something, where like just this hopeful store owner that just always sees the best in people. It's just, it feels so like at odds at what I come to expect from like the stories in these movies, and it might not be a problem, again, like we said, if it's just like a few minutes to get an idea of who these characters are, but it feels like it just goes on forever, and it's such a pain to watch. Like, well,
the bigger problem that comes from it, though, because I was really having a problem with this, is that when the gang shows up and, okay, they're holding them at gunpoint, and the idea is that we've come to care about these 2 old characters, so you're actually feeling kind of tense about it, which I wouldn't say I was, but in theory, that's what they're doing, right? And all of a sudden, you've got this main bad guy talking about going to Hollywood and his hair and taking photos of himself and asking the old lady, do you think I'm better looking than that guy in that movie who lost his hair and it made him lose his mojo? And even though they keep saying they've not seen it, he still keeps asking, hey, I'm better looking than him, right? And she's like, yeah, I guess. Yeah, sure. And all of this is so like specific and weird and quirky. And because the story spent so much time setting up the old couple as if they're the main characters, these characters that come into the story with such weird, specific, like, I don't even know what you call it, cartoony, like, motivations, feel like such a swerve. It feels like such a, like, they don't fit into the story they already set up. Like, they were doing this really down-to-earth, like, sad story about an old couple who are starting to, like don't have enough customers for their store, and, like, the Native American chief comes in and hands them some, like, priceless jewels because he knows they're having trouble or whatever, and it's a thank you for always being kind to him, and makes a whole deal about how, oh, you have to keep them because if you give them back, it's an insult and blah, blah, blah. And that's, it's like, so all of it's this kind of, like, heartwarming, kind of schmaltzy, like, oh, this country can be great again, kind of like.
Isn't the white man so nice to the Native Americans?
Yeah, like, it's so weird. And then this trio of characters show up, and they're so cartoony and weird that it rubs me the wrong way, because I'm like, see, if you started with them and you started this story and look at how weird these kooky characters are, I'd be like, fine, that's just who they are. That's like a stylistic choice, and I'll just enjoy how weird they are. But because they insert themselves into the story halfway through, it just feels like, wait, what are we doing now? Why does he care about going to Hollywood? Why is this suddenly what the whole thing's about? Yeah. I don't know. It's such a left turn. It's weird.
No, I mean, everything about it is bizarre and like, I don't know, offensive and just it's just not, I don't know. It's like not really well, actually I will have like a few nice things to say later on, but I mean, it's still not a good story or anything.
No, it's worth mentioning one of the other gang members is another actor that's recognizable. He's very young here versus what I'm used to seeing him as, but Don Harvey, who's the guy that's got the car, he was in The Deuce. He's one of those character actors that's popped up in a lot of roles, usually playing some sort of drunk cop, is what I think of him as more than anything.
He was like the rich guy.
He was the rich one out of the three. Yeah.
Okay. Was the other one? I mean, I could have taken like the 2 seconds to look it up on IMDb, but the other guy looked really familiar too, and like I want to say, was he from like a Night of the Demons or something? That's what it kept reminding me of. But
well, let me click on him and I'll find out. He's in Girls' Night Out, which I've seen. We've not done in the show yet, but
that's a horror movie.
It is, yes. No, okay. He's not listed for that movie.
Oh, okay.
Mixing things up. He's the fat one, though. And
yeah, he reminded me of that guy, yeah.
Yeah. I say that not only because he is clearly fat and always eating, but they actually call him like fat dude or whatever his name is. Fatso, yeah, they just call him Fatso every time they refer to him. So you've got these three characters. One who's always eating and he's just a joke. One who just cares about his car and has like the flame bird on it and all that. And then a guy who's pretending to be a different race with a really bad wig and is just, I don't know, obsessed with going to Hollywood. Like, look, if you steal money here and go to Hollywood, if these two report you to the police, you're probably not going to like have this happily ever after story.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because like I don't know if they just always plan to murder them or whatever. But
I don't think they did, because at least the other two didn't seem to like expect that.
Yeah.
In fact, honestly, when he kills the woman first, it seems like he does it by accident. It seems like he just kind of accidentally pulls the trigger, and I'm sorry, but this was unintentionally hilarious. The way that she just kind of like stood there after being shot in the side and then slowly kind of like went down as if she's on like an elevator going down, I thought was hilarious. Her death was ludicrous. It's like, this is not physically, like, she reacted to being shot in the side with a shotgun the same way that someone would, like, you know, in a cartoon where you put your hand on a kettle and you don't react to it, instead you sort of like turn slowly and look at it like no, before you finally pull it away. That's how she reacted to being blasted in the side with a shotgun. And she just like, she goes down almost just completely in a straight line until she gets like halfway and then keels over out of the fruit or whatever it was that was sitting there. And that's her, she's dead. And then the old man just stumbles forward, and our long-haired wannabe actor with the hair just shoots him and he kills. And I was like, oh, the two characters we spent 15 minutes of boring dialogue scenes establishing are already dead because they're not even the important part of the story.
And yeah, like you said, it's just like, what are they thinking? Like, because yeah, obviously, like, it's a small town, like they know who they are. Like, yeah, even if they weren't planning on murder and just robbing them, like, I'm pretty sure they're gonna report that to the police and know who you are, and like,
or at the very least call his uncle that he knows.
Right, yeah.
he knows his family members. Like, it's just not gonna. And once they do kill them and the other two are a bit freaked out by it, he's like, yeah, let's leave in a couple hours and go to Hollywood. And it's like, okay, but you just killed hours. Yeah, is that not what he says?
No, you're right. I'm just saying it's a dumb plan. Cause, yeah. Let's wait around.
Yeah, let's all go home first, and then I guess they're assuming no one will find the bodies till the next day at the very least. So yeah, but like, they're going to find dead bodies. You're going to be a wanted murder suspect. Like, I don't know. It does not feel very well thought out, needless to say. So anyway, what the story actually is about, though, is the fact that the Native American statue out front comes to life and goes and kills them all for revenge. That's what the story actually is.
Yeah. So some nice things I will say is I do think, like, it did look good, like, when, you know, the statue was moving and stuff. Like, I thought it was kind of a cool effect, like, that I was like, oh, like, it looks like a wooden statue or whatever. And then there was like one scene that I thought was really cool when he like I think it's a long-haired guy that like he grabs him and he's like pulling him through I forget it was like the wall or the window, but it's kind of like
it's just the wall. He puts his fist through the wall and then drags him back through by the hair.
Yeah, and it's like all done like from like a bird's eye view or whatever, and like that shot did like look pretty cool. This is all very minor stuff, like it doesn't justify like how bad the story is, but if I was gonna give it like the most minor compliments, I guess I'd say that.
Because of course at the end of the store scene he does take all those like Native American jewels and stuff that was given to the store owner, and that seems to be the big no-no that awakens the statue. Is like, oh, he's stolen the thing that belongs to them, so the Native American statue is going to wake up. And you know, when it starts happening, you just sort of see the statue reach for the red paint to like touch up its war paint on its cheeks, because that's how the story starts. Is the old man's out sort of basically just repainting his face paint because the sun's kind of, you know, corroded it over time is the word I'm looking for. So yeah, like they really play with the shadow of the statue. They do a whole thing where the first two victims, the first two guys, like the fat guys, like they introduce all of the people that are going to get killed by having them all watch the same movie on TV. Like every time it cuts to one of them, they're watching or at least walking past the TV playing this movie. But yeah, the fat guy gets shot with some arrows as he's stuffing his face. Not too much to it. The card dude who's got the rich family, he's sneaking out and finds his car all smashed up, and you see the shadow of the statue kind of on the wall, and then you see the shadow sort of swing down and blood spurts onto the wall. It's not particularly gory or anything, but it's effective enough. The kills aren't too bad. They're fine. Yeah. But the end of the story is that the uncle, the chief or whatever you want to call him, he wakes up with the gems next to him, and he's like, wait, how did they get there? What's happened? And he drives out to the store, and he sees the statue holding the scalp of his nephew. I don't know if he realizes it's his nephew. He kind of just salutes the statue and like says thank you or something like that. He doesn't even go in and find the dead bodies of like the old man that he likes. He just sort of says something to the statue and walks away, and that's the end of the story.
Well, he's probably just like so happy. He's like, oh, I finally got rid of those condescending white people.
Oh dear. Yeah,
got rid of my jerk nephew, these idiot white dudes, and yeah, it's all coming up. That guy.
There's almost nothing I liked about this story. Between it taking,
it's very bad. Between
it taking too long to get started, and then it turns out that the characters we spent 15 minutes with a really boring introduction, they weren't even the important part. Then the villains just being kind of laughable, partly because they're problematic, but partly just because they look stupid and act weird. And then like the ending's just kind of whatever. I mean, the Native American statue going to kill them is okay, but it's not enough to rescue it by any means.
Oh no, not at all. Yeah, it's a shame, and this is like your lead into the movie, you know, like this is how it starts.
This is putting you in the mood that you're going to be in for the rest of the time. It's the appetizer. Oh dear. So yeah, that's that. I don't have much more to add about it.
Yeah, it sucks. I don't know, like I guess I could see like a better version of this maybe if it was trying to seem like, you know, like I don't know, like more fun, or I don't know, like something like a grindhouse kind of exploitation kind of thing, but something that's actually obviously you would, want like real Native American actors and probably have, stuff like more from their point of view, like maybe make them the shop owners or something instead of, these two like just super nice white people or whatever. Like I could see something like that being more fun, but it just nothing is really handled well in this story.
No, yeah, I have nothing to add. It's a complete turd, and there's not really much more I can say about it. All right, The Raft is the second story, and this is the one that tends to get some buzz. It's like four young college-aged friends driving out to a lake to go on to the raft that's floating out in the middle, and I don't know, have an afternoon or something. I
mean, it's you don't really need to know much. They're like young, horny college students that want to drink beer and hang out on a raft. Like, what else do you need?
Yeah. Even though they do point out it's September and the water's very cold, and that's why it's so quiet. But they think, hey, that means it's all for us. Yeah, but it's freezing, and you're all freezing on this raft because you all like stripped down to go swimming towards it. Now, basically, this is a monster story. This is a floating. I think the closest I can compare it to is the Blob, where it's like just this sort of puddle of the Blob floating in the water. What's so funny though is that while it's kind of interesting that it just kind of looks like a sort of vague black shape in the water, there are certain shots where it has kind of like a bin bag looking quality to it, where you can sort of almost like see how cheap it is. It's just like, it's a big bit of black sort of plastic and just some things kind of put onto it. That said though, it does work quite well, and whenever it attacks people, it tends to be like, black goo kind of like wrapping itself around them. It looks quite visceral, and it has a good visual to it. There's not really much to like the premise really, other than just they swim out to this raft. As they're getting there, the smart guy, the one who's like a science or doctor major or whatever, he like notices this thing moving and starts worrying. And when they all get there, they think, oh, you're freaking out. There's nothing wrong. You're just being weird. It's just a bit of oil or something. And then, of course, it grabs, it grabs the girl you would assume would be the final girl, because it's the nice girl who's shy and quiet, but she gets grabbed first and pulled into the water and is melted or whatever. Like, I will say, I did like that when they get grabbed in and consumed by this thing, you effectively get just like a skeleton at the end that's covered in black goo. I think that was a good visual.
Yeah, I love like just how low down and nasty this one is. Like, I mean, you compare it to the first one, like, it just starts off right away. Like, you just need a few minutes. You pretty much instantly understand who these characters are. It's just a real quick setup. Like, hey, we're drunk. Let's go swim out to that raft. Okay, and then. The monster pretty much starts attacking right there, and I think visually it looks great. I understand what you're saying, like some of the shots of it like just floating or whatever just looks like a cheap little thing, but I know I honestly though I kind of like that. Like, I don't know, I think it has some charm to it, and I like that it's just kind of like,
oh sure,
like what is this thing? It just looks like trash or whatever, but then it's so dangerous once it gets to you.
Yeah, I mean, I can appreciate the charm of it, just like, it's budget, on its sleeve kind of thing. I guess if you want to say it does look kind of like oil or trash, then maybe it's actually trying to have the slightest bit of commentary of like, oh, us polluting the planet, it's fighting back or something like that. But I mean, there's no actual explanation. You don't bother with it. There's no need for one.
No.
So I mean, honestly, like, it kills the sort of the jock type guy next. He gets grabbed through the boards of the raft. Like, it actually comes up through the cracks and grabs them. So that makes it feel very unsafe, where they have to like stand on the raft without overlapping the the boards themselves. They can't stand on the lines. Like you're a kid and you're playing that game where you can't stand on the lines.
Yeah, and again, it just feels so like visceral and nasty, and it's like sucking him down through the floorboards, and like his leg snaps back, so he just has like this one like leg upturned, and it's again visually it's just really hitting on all angles.
They do a thing at the end of his death where his hand's going between the two boards, and it's so tight that his ring comes off as his hand goes down, so his ring's left on the crack on top of the raft. So
the only thing I would say is, like, I know that this is all very horrific to see and everything, but like, wouldn't this be your chance to be like, all right, let's just like jump and just swim like hell for the shore?
That would be the idea. It's effectively what one of them does later on.
Right. Yeah.
You know, when the final victim, well, technically the second final victim, but so from here though, it's the sort of the smart guy and the girlfriend of the jock that are left. So it's kind of this unlikely alliance between two people who weren't really that close, but you know they're keeping each other warm. They're scared. They're keeping away from the edge. The monster, whatever it is, does kind of go out from underneath the raft and just sort of sits near it. So they kind of keep watch on it overnight. They eventually fall asleep, and it's when he wakes up, where all of a sudden, despite the fact that there's no hints before this scene that he has a problem or is going to do anything bad. I thought it was a dream sequence at first. Well, actually, the first thing I thought was because he does this thing where he sort of like he sits up a bit, and because of the way she was kind of lying next to him for body heat, she kind of like sort of ends up kind of in the, I guess we'll call it the romantic kiss pose, where he's kind of holding her, and she's still asleep, but he's kind of holding her in the sense where, you know, if you were doing like a sort of, you know, lean her back and kiss her kind of pose, right? It just kind of naturally falls that way. And then he sort of pulls her head up and he goes to kiss her on the forehead. Now, I thought that was fine because I thought, okay, he's doing like kind of a sweet kiss in the forehead before he tries to do something stupid to like save her or something. I thought he was going to do something heroic, and this was like a sweet little kiss goodbye. However, the warning sign, although I tried to just kind of like give it the benefit of the doubt, is that the kiss in the forehead felt like it lasted longer than a kiss in the forehead should. You know, a kiss in the forehead's meant to be like a quick peck, or maybe you hold it for a second. But it was more like he was making out with her forehead, because you don't see it, but it's because you see it like from behind her head. But it's kind of like he's going like, oh no, he started like doing that kind of thing. I realized the audio listeners just heard me make a noise, but trust me, there was a good visual to go about it. But then of course he like leans her down and starts like lifting up her top, exposes her breast, starts fondling her, starts kissing her stomach, and she's kind of like starting to turn and stuff as she's asleep, like feeling this. And I'm like, wait, is this just actually happening? Is he just doing that? Like, even if he is a complete perv, right? Even if he is this type of guy, which the story's not told me at all up until this point, in this situation where this monster's sitting there waiting to kill you at any point, is now the time. Is now the time to be making your move. I don't know. This just felt really weird and out of nowhere to me. Every part of it.
Like, yeah, the only thing I can think of that I guess maybe would be some type of reason, like, not that it justifies it, but I guess if it wants to give us a reason to not like him, so that we're happy that he dies.
Tim, that's not enough. That is exactly why they did this. They wanted us not to feel bad when he dies at the end of the story. But that feels really shitty though, because it feels so forced in just for that reason.
Oh yeah, I feel like there's a lot less problematic ways to, give us a reason to not like him.
I mean, why not just have him kick her into the water next to the things so that he creates the distraction so that he can run or he can swim for the shore. Instead, I mean, and she doesn't even realize this has happened to her, because like he kind of like quickly, like when he realizes she's waking up, right? Because she sort of like leans over to one side, and when he realizes she's waking up, he pulls her shirt down quickly. And then she starts to scream, and then she turns her head, and you realize that because her head was actually face down on the raft, the monster's actually like sticking to her face through the crack, and her face is starting to like sort of burn off or melt off or whatever. And then begins her death scene where she gets taken by the thing. And then that's when he decides, oh, you know what? While it's eating her, I'm going to chance it and try and get to the shore. And honestly, like the tension of that is pretty fun. Like I said, though, there is one like bird's eye shot where it really showed how cheap the thing was, which is maybe the one they shouldn't have done. But when he gets to the shore, I will say he does come across as a complete idiot, because he basically just gets like an inch out of the water and says, "Ha ha, I won, you didn't get me." And what does it do? Of course, it just rises up and kind of scoops over him.
It's like a big tidal wave or something.
Yeah. And I'm like, you couldn't have just like kept running for like another 10 feet at least, just to have enough safe distance just to get there. But the story ends with a sign that says no swimming. Like, there was a warning not to swim in the pool or in the lake. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a weird trash monster. Don't swim there. So it is weird. There's that one like very like upsetting scene, but I mean, other than that though, I mean, to me this is such a banger. Like, I think it's so gory and like messy whenever it's eating someone, and I just think it's such like a really cool, simple visual. And then like the ending, I think it's obviously, like, I agree, it's very stupid of the character to just sit there, but I think it's such like a nice little like gotcha ending where the thing's just like nope, and then I'm gonna rise up and consume you. I really love this one. I think it's a standout.
I would have no problems with him doing the pervy stuff if there was like one or two little hints earlier on that he was eyeing her up or something. There's something just to suggest that he has these thoughts, that it's something that he's thinking about. But it doesn't feel like at any point they ever even tease it. So it just feels out of nowhere, and it doesn't feel like the characters have set up. And it does feel like, this is going to end with him getting comeuppance. We have to have him do something that warrants the comeuppance. And we get to that weird, creepy bit. So I did like it. I do think the core premise is fun. It does look good when any of them are getting eaten. It's a simple, game of lava, effectively, where we can't go into the water. We can't stand too close to the edge. It's almost like a much more condensed version of something like the Shallows, like it's particularly in that sense where they can see the car. Like, it's only like 50 feet to the car on the shore, but they can't get to it. That reminded me a lot of the Shallows, actually.
I can see that,
but yeah, mostly pretty fun though, but barring that one complaint of just them pulling that development out of nowhere.
For sure, yeah.
All right, and then the third story is The Hitchhiker. Which is about a woman who was having an affair, or more specifically, she was seeing a male prostitute and basically realized she'd stayed a little bit too late and was rushing home to her husband. She has a very nonchalant attitude about the whole thing and talking to the prostitute about whatever, but she's rushing home to her husband. And it was funny. Obviously, she gets comeuppance later because of what she does in the car. But part of me was thinking, is she getting comeuppance because she's like not paying the prostitute enough? Because he points out that she's still paying the introductory rate, and she's like, "No, well, you got to put your prices up." But she's driving home. She ends up hitting a hitchhiker while swerving, and decides to flee the scene of the crime and tries to drive home. And the premise of this story is that the undead version of the hitchhiker keeps popping up next to the car, on the roof of the car, over by the window, in front of the car. It'll be, it's basically, and this is what I was kind of hinting at this earlier, that I found it a bit repetitive, and that's because it never really does anything different other than she thinks she's finally got away from him, and then she turns around and he's right there next to the window. We'll do that again.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I agree. It's not a bad premise, but you kind of wish it found maybe something a little bit more clever to do, or again, it probably could have been shortened up a bit. Maybe you shorten this one, definitely the first one, then maybe we have room for like another quick story or something. But it's not bad. Like like the woman's pretty unlikable, so it's fun, seeing her get her comeuppance, and then I think like the makeup and stuff on the hitchhiker look pretty good.
Well, yeah, I'd say the one good thing about the hitchhiker himself is that as she starts to get more scared and she's driving off road into the forest and stuff, she eventually starts to like kill him again because like she's so scared of him and he keeps coming for her. So she shoots him a bunch of times with a gun she had in the glove compartment, and then she runs over him and then decides to run back over him again, And I appreciated that the next time we see him again, even though I found it a bit repetitive that he pops up just again, like, 2 minutes later. The next time we see him, like, he does look much worse, like his face has been run over by a car, and he's just got like a sort of bloody, almost flat kind of like sort of surface going across. So I appreciated that. I appreciated the progressive deterioration of this undead hitchhiker who keeps getting, killed in various ways. But it is quite repetitive though, because it is just like. But by the time he popped up for the third time, I'm like, you know what? Maybe you should have had a bit more of like a drawn out tension thing where she has not seen him yet. She's just like suspecting that there's something following her, and then before he pops out. But they went straight to he's there, and he's a zombie kind of thing. Except that he speaks. He says, thanks for the lift.
Thanks for the ride.
Yeah. So,
which is funny. I feel like that's something I had a friend in high school who would quote that all the time. So it always makes me laugh when I watch it.
What a guy. I have nothing to add. Anyway, I suppose there's a moment where I thought, so Stephen King's got a cameo on this story, right? And I thought his character was very racist for a second until I realized why he said something. Because basically this business guy pulls up in a car and sees the body and goes, oh shit, this is a hit and run. And then a truck pulls up and the truck driver, Stephen King, and he's like, oh, what happened? And he's like, oh, it looks like a hit and run. So the businessman pulls out this car phone that he's got because it's the 80s, and he's like calling 911 and getting police or whoever out. And there's a moment where Stephen King says, yeah, I saw the car speed by me like a mile up the road. Pretty sure it was black. And I went, wait, what? You're assuming the suspect is black? And then I saw the hitchhiker more properly. I went, oh no, he's talking about the hitchhiker who's lying in front of him. That makes more sense.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I thought his character was being very racist and just blaming a black person for it.
No, nothing in this movie is racist.
Obviously, well, because I thought he was mistaking, a medium-build, middle-aged white woman.
Right, yeah.
But anyway, and then the little twist at the end is that this business guy with the phone turns out to be the main character's husband. Because he arrives at the house at the end and finds her dead body. Which, how did she get there? Well, she eventually gets rid of the dead hitchhiker by just running over him and like shooting him and killing him repeatedly. And when she eventually gets back to the house, she's into the garage, and then would you believe it, the dead hitchhiker pops up again, and the garage door shuts, and she's trapped in there with him. And when the husband finds her, she's dead. That's basically it. I guess the one thing that I would say is that there is kind of this theme in this one where she's very kind of materialistic. But it's also this idea of like, she kind of is like faking a conversation with her husband. Before she even hits the hitchhiker, she's saying to herself, oh, hey, sorry I was late, I was doing this. And then she kind of just like does a fake conversation where she says, oh, sorry I was late, honey, but I was with a prostitute. He gave me 6 orgasms for $150. That's $25 an orgasm. And then it becomes this running thing as she starts to like damage parts of the car, which is like, oh, that'll be like $200 to fix. Oh, that'll be $3,000 to fix. And she basically keeps adding up to the cost of what this night of sex has cost her, where by the end it's like, like 10 grand to get the car fixed. So that's how much that sex actually did cost her. I don't know if they were going with just like, oh, she's super vain and materialistic, or if it's like she underpaid in the first place, so karma's getting her with making it even more expensive or something. Maybe I'm reading into it too much, but I was looking for something that was a bit more meaty than just undead man pops up and says hello again.
Right.
Because there's really not a lot to the plot of this one once it gets going.
No, it's just a fairly straightforward. Again, it does feel like something I would have read in one of those like EC comics, like Tales from the Crypt or something. Like I can see, a story being similar to this. I do agree though. I think that is a nice little touch. So like, as it's going on and on, like both the hitchhiker and the car like getting more and more damaged. And the and I think basically the reason she hits him is it starts because like she drops like a cigarette or something. And she's like, her first reaction is like, oh no, like these are leather seats or whatever, and then she starts swerving, like really can't get control of her car.
And that goes back to the conversation with the prostitute where he said, oh, you've got a Mercedes, you can afford to pay or whatever, and she kind of says, hey, I need to keep the husband, otherwise you'll never get your Mercedes, implying that you should keep giving him business kind of thing. So it'd be even that conversation, they're talking about her wealth, they're talking about how she can afford to be there and the life she has with her husband. It's all very, kind of two-dimensional and vapid kind of thing, which I mean, it's fine, and like I think the setup of the story's fine. I think the ending of the story's all right. I think they just had to be more inventive with all the bits of like the hitchhiker coming to her. Like it really could have been like, oh, maybe she has to stop for fuel, and like maybe there's something that happens at the station kind of thing, or just do other things other than he pops up right next to one of the windows again and she immediately freaks out and drives into the forest. Like I felt like that happened 5 times, and it's only like a 30-minute story. It's just like, but once it gets going, it's effectively just like an extended sequence of chaotic driving, her being scared. It seems like he's gone for like 30 seconds to a minute. Oh, he's popped up again, and then we start the cycle again, and that's it.
Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of hard to talk about because like I really don't have strong feelings about it. It's
nothing else happened. That's the problem. Yeah. There's nothing else to talk about.
Yeah, even like I think it's always fun to see Stephen King, but it's like even that this like wasn't really that fun of a cameo. Like just like, oh yeah, he stops. And they when they're at the prostitute or sex worker's house or whatever, wherever they are having their indulgence, I did notice he had a copy of Stephen King's in the background, so I thought that was a fun little touch. But
the effort they put into that Easter egg.
But yeah, I mean, otherwise don't really have too much to say about it.
I'm trying to think if there's any significance to the start of the story where she complains that the prostitute, because she's fallen asleep with them, and there was meant to be an alarm going off to make sure she'd leave in time. And he's got a digital alarm clock, right? Ancient tech by today's standards, but seemingly high tech in the 1980s. But it malfunctioned and it didn't go off. And she complains that he doesn't have like an old school wind up clock with a bell. And he gives like a reason why he doesn't like those, and she complains about digital crap. And I thought that was going to be like a theme of the story. It was like this idea that she doesn't like new technology or something. And obviously it has nothing to do with anything. It never even comes up at all in the rest of this. Yeah, that's all I got for you.
Yeah.
I mean, her performance is fine. I had no problem with the actress.
No, I mean, it's extremely, middle of the road. It's just, I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's great. It's just fine.
Yes, it's fine. It's fine.
Which again, the whole movie is just very strange to me. You just have again one that's just like the absolute worst, one that's the absolute best, and one that's just very down the middle. Like it's weird to me that it's like so all over the place.
It's funny because they cut 2 stories for time and budget or whatever, and I feel like you could have that first story, get a good 10 minutes there. You can cut at least 5 minutes out of this one. Not that I think you need to. I think if you were just more inventive with how the dead man keeps like stalking her or showing up, I think if you were more inventive and like creative with that, I think it could have easily sustained its runtime. But let's just say they don't do that. Like cut 5 minutes from this, 10 minutes from the first one. Hey, that's a 15-minute. Maybe you can squeeze another 5, get 20-minute story. Have a fourth. Like like why not? So
that's a shame.
Yeah. There's also the wraparound though, which we do mention, which starts and ends in live action, but most of which is actually animated. It sort of becomes a cartoon meant to mimic the comic book of the Creepshow that we see in here. So we have Tom Savini in heavy makeup playing the creep, who's delivering copies of Creepshow, and this little boy named Billy on his bike who's super excited about the new issue. And then it turns into a cartoon. And throughout these segments, we get him excited to read the book, going to the post office to pick up his package that he ordered because it was advertised in the book, which is a Venus flytrap, and then he gets picked on by bullies. And then the end of the story, after the final story, is that he runs away from these bullies into like a place in the field, but it turns out he's already got giant Venus flytraps ready, and they eat all the bullies. And that's that story. I summed that up very quickly. I don't know what else to say about it.
I mean, yeah, again, it's pretty straightforward. There's not a ton to it. I enjoy this for the most part. I'm a pretty big animation fan. I wouldn't say it's maybe the best, but it's definitely looks a lot better than I feel like a lot of stuff nowadays. Like I prefer traditional animation versus like a lot of CGI stuff. So it's refreshing.
I mean, I like this for what it was. Like I thought it gave it kind of a cool, like having this horror cartoon kind of in between the actual main segments seemed like a fun little thing. I like the opening titles where it was doing like sort of the comic book panels of all the stories we were going to get, even if they were a bit spoilery in some ways.
Sure.
But it is kind of funny. Like I thought there'd be more to say about it, and then I just summed it up in like 20 seconds and went, I guess there isn't much to say about it.
Yeah. Again, it's just it is what it is.
Yeah, it switches back to live action as the creeps on his delivery truck just throwing out copies of Creepshow. And we literally actually hold on this shot of his truck driving down this long country road as the credits are rolling in front of it. So, yes, he's going to West Virginia.
Okay.
Because country road, Tim.
Oh, okay.
Take me home to the place I call home.
I didn't realize you're such a country fan.
I mean, I'm not, but that song's just that song has transcended country music.
Okay.
Why are you sounding so skeptical of that?
Well, I wish he was coming to my house. I would love for the creep to just drive down my street, throwing out comic books for me to get my grubby little hands on.
Yeah. I mean, I will say this, like, I didn't have a bad time watching this movie. It did have like a nice vibe. Like, I enjoyed the introduction with the kid on his bike being excited for the new comic. Obviously, the first story put me in a bit of a downer, but the middle story is good. I don't know if I'm going to call it the best of the best, like Tim's saying it is, but it is good. It's a good story and an anthology with that one main caveat. And then the last story is fine, if a bit repetitive and overlong, but certainly a decent enough premise. So, I think it's a fine like experience if you want something from this era with this vibe. If you like the first movie, I think it's a decent enough little sequel to sort of throw on after it. But it's not like I was hoping that I was going to come out of this thinking, oh, I just saw like a gem that I hadn't seen yet because everyone raved about that middle story, and it was good, but I don't think it was enough to be like, oh, this is this is a must see because of this story necessarily. So I don't know. I but at the same time, I don't feel too negative because it was a very easy watch. It was a very easy kind of mid-80s vibe to it. I don't know. Anyway, on you go.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. Like again, the first one I just absolutely adore, and it has a very special place in my heart. And then I like this one too. A lot of it is kind of like residual feelings from the first one. But again, the first one the first story is so frustrating, but the rest of it holds up for me. And I think it's there's enough in here. Like it still feels like, even though like Romero and King weren't as heavily involved in this one as they were the first one, it still feels like they're trying to play off what they brought to the first one. And then the big complaint with the way the series has continued between the third one, which is just like it doesn't feel like Creepshow at all, and then some stuff with the TV show. It just it's kind of funny because like this has become quite a bit of a franchise over the last couple of years, because for a long time it was just like these two movies. Then you got this weird like imposter third movie out of nowhere, but then you have the TV show on Shudder, which has has a couple of seasons now, and then they have a comic book at Image, so there's actually quite a bit of Creepshow content. But yeah, after this one, like it's never really felt the same to me. Like there's been bits and pieces to enjoy from the show and the comic book, but then there's also stuff that just doesn't feel like Creepshow at all to me in it. So yeah, I don't know. I think I still, even though it's a pretty big step down from the first one, I still enjoy this one a decent amount, because it still has some of the same like vibes and feelings that I feel like made the first one so special to me. But yeah, so it's definitely not bad, and there's some stuff I quite enjoy, but it's more of a mixed bag than the first one, which I thought was very consistent and fun the whole way through.
I feel like Creepshow, maybe there was like a weird rights thing as well, but I feel like the reason why Creepshow kind of just went dormant is because the Tales from the Crypt TV show became a thing, and it kind of felt like,
oh sure,
what's the point of having both? They're basically filling the same, at least close to enough. Like, I'm sure you being an uber nerd about them, are like, well, this is what makes them different from each other. But like, I think to most people, they're filling a similar enough niche that there's no need to have both of them at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, this was basically meant to be kind of like a love letter to these old EC comics, and then Tales from the Crypt is just adapting these old EC comics. Like, it'd be like if you had if you're making like a superhero show, and it's basically, oh, like, these are all my thoughts and feelings about Superman, my favorite superhero, and then right after it, they started making Superman movies again or something. Then it is kind of like, oh yeah, do we need the thing that's like the love letter or the homage when you have the actual thing? And I don't know, like I mean, obviously I feel like there's room for both and stuff, but I understand what you're saying. Like, yeah, you don't really need both of them. And then yeah, I don't know the exact story, but like you said, I think there was some rights things, and then Romero, because I think Romero also, I don't know if he created the Tales from the Dark Side TV show, or if he was just like involved in directing some of the episodes and stuff, but I don't know if that also kind of like filled his niche or whatever for this kind of style of stories.
Yeah, I mean, Tales from the Dark Side again even just feels like another one of these, right? Like,
yeah,
Tales from the Crypt, Tales from the Dark Side, Creepshow, they're all kind of in the same blender of horror anthology.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
So yeah, and I'm not saying that you can't have both. I'm just saying I'm wondering if that's why it kind of laid so dormant for so long, is because for years there was this Tales from the Crypt TV show, and then by the time that ended, the appetite for that sort of thing had kind of dried up for a while. Until it became nostalgic, and then we start getting stuff in the last few years. So anyway,
and it's a shame that I think all the Tales from the Crypt stuff is all tied up in like legal nonsense too, because like M. Night Shyamalan wanted to do that reboot like a few years back or whatever, and was never able to quite get it off the ground. And it's a shame, because we reviewed every episode of the TV shows, and
I remember
that's a series that I still have very fond memories of, but as we were going back and doing it, there was quite a number of episodes that don't really need to see the light of day. I
mean, right away I can just say to everyone, seasons 5 through 7, don't bother. we were in torture like during those last 3 seasons.
Oh yeah, those were really tough, but I mean, there was still a lot of episodes I like, and I still love, the Crypt Keeper. And so, yeah, it's kind of a shame that, we haven't gotten like a reboot or revival of that.
Well, it's time to do the things. This is maybe a bit weird for an anthology movie, but scene of the movie, Tim.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously the standout is the Raft. So it would definitely be a scene from there, but yeah, which scene?
It's probably one of the deaths, if I was to guess.
I kind of just like when they're in the car talking about how they're gonna go get drunk. No, I think I would give it to the let's go with the jock death. Yeah, just him getting like sucked through the floorboards. It just feels so. First of all, it's kind of surprising. Like the first time you watch it, because it's like, oh yeah, I'm assuming that they're safe on the raft, but it's like, oh no, it can get you between the cracks, and then just how grisly and nasty it is with the leg snapping, and then like kind of like punch ending of him getting sucked up in the ring, not being able to fit. It's all beautiful.
Yeah, I think I might go with the final girl who dies. Her like death scene, obviously not was right before the death scene, because that was the bad bit. But I think the reveal of her face being against the boards, and then she like turns her head, and like her face is already started to melt off on that side, and then leading that to like her actually reaching out, calling for help as her hands coming through the black goo, like in the water. I thought that was quite effective and looked pretty cool. So I'll go with that. Again, also weird in an anthology movie, but MVP of the movie.
This is kind of tough because again, the Raft is easily the best segment, but
does it have the best character in it or actor in it?
I don't think so. They're all like pretty like one note. And I mean, it's fun. Like, I don't need very deep characters for this type of schlocky monster story.
I mean, I could make it easier and say it, since it's an anthology, we'll just do like story of the movie instead of MVP of the movie. But we both know what we're going to pick for that.
Yeah. No, I mean, well, the other person I was thinking was the woman in the Hitcher. Is it Hitcher or Hitchhiker? I forget.
Hitchhiker. Hitcher's the movie with Rutger Hauer.
Yeah. I forget her name, but I did like the way she was like monologuing to herself, and like, and she did a good job at playing that very, flippant, like materialistic, greedy kind of character. So yeah, again, it's a shame that segment isn't tightened up so it could work a little better. Maybe she'd stand out if it was just a bit tighter or whatever, but I thought she did a pretty good job.
I genuinely don't really have anyone springing to mind instantly for this.
The guy with the long hair in the first one.
No, I like him in other things. I wouldn't say I particularly like, because his entire character is just so distracting in this.
The other one I was kind of tossing around, but it feels a little cheap because it's not in much of the movie. But I was like, I don't know, I kind of like Tom Savini as a creep.
I think I'm going to go for something from the interlude. You know that? I'm going to go with young Billy, because he's an evil little shit who lures bullies into their death like he's poison ivy. So
I'm sure after you're done watching the movie, you started looking up like, can I order some Venus flytraps?
No, I did not. Thank you very much.
He did have a good line too at the end, where I think he said something like, "They eat meat." Like, he was so he's so into it. And then it's kind of a nice I guess, I don't know, reference or nod or whatever to the first one, where we had the other little boy who's played by Joe Hill, who like just wanted to read his comic books, and then when his dad got mad at him, he ordered the voodoo doll. So similar to the wraparound from the first one, and that one he ordered a voodoo doll that he used to kill his dad, Tom Atkins, and then this one he orders Venus flytraps to kill his bullies, but still fun.
All right, Tim, what are you rating Creepshow to?
So I was actually doing like a little bit of math beforehand. So I was kind of trying to see, like, I don't know, maybe I'll just kind of rate each story and then see what the average of that is. Like if I was gonna go like with the first story, I mean, honestly, it might seem too high, but like I don't know. I was thinking like maybe a 3, and the only reason why it's not like a 2 is just because again, I thought some of the effects and stuff looked nice and had that like one cool shot, but I again, very little redeeming about that. And then yeah, the middle one I really love. I think it's just a great nasty little bit of you know, creature attacking horny college students with some really gnarly effects. So it's funny if it was a like a feature length movie, I'd probably give it a lower score because like, yeah, I don't know really how you would sustain that, but I think this is like the perfect kind of story for anthology horror. Like, it's quick, it's dirty, it's nasty. So yeah, I would probably give that a 9. I really like that one quite a bit.
Yeah, I think you'd have a bigger raft with more characters so that you could sort of milk out them dying one by one if it was a longer movie. But yeah, it works in the runtime as it is.
Yeah, and then the last one again, it's very middle of the road. It's not bad, but it's not great. There's some fun stuff, but it could have been better. But I'd probably give that one a 6. So if you average those out, it would just be a 6. But then I do like the wraparound, so I'll give it an extra half a point for that. So I'm gonna go 6.5.
Yeah, straight 6 for me. I didn't put this much math into it. I just kind of felt like, okay, I like one of the stories. One's watchable. Wraparounds get a nice vibe at the very least, even though it's not much of a story. And the first story sucks. So yeah, it's basically the like that middle story on its own is probably like a 7.5 or so. The last story's probably like a 5.5, and then the first one's like 3 or something like that. Yeah, not even going to think about it, but I'll go with 6. I will say that by and large, I will prop up the movie a bit for the one that's good, because at least that's one reason to watch it, right? If it's got at least one good story, it's worth watching it in some capacity. So I'll say 6, but it's a lukewarm 6 overall, I would say. But yeah, there you go. That's Creepshow 2. Yes,
I think. Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll make a declaration. Maybe we'll do the third one for next Octoberthon, because we got to talk about it. I'm gonna be ranting and raving all over the place. That legitimately might be one of my most hated movies. I guess, spoiler alert for my thoughts. But
I hope I love it.
I might have to quit the show, because like that would just be like, if you, not because like we can't have differing opinions, but that would just mean you've like lost all sense of taste. If you love that movie.
We can have different opinions, except on this one particular thing, I will not accept it in any capacity.
I mean, there's a matter of opinion, and then there's a matter of like, oh, he's like lost like all like matter of being able to judge a movie. Like he like came down with some disease or something. Like it wouldn't make sense.
All right.
And I'm not trying to belittle anyone that likes that movie. I mean, if you do, stop listening to the show. Like you
don't say that. I mean, the movie only probably has like 13 fans, but that's not the point. Like anyway, so yes, it is the Octoberthon. I won't say what's coming next, just in case the order changes a little bit, because we're recording these a touch in advance. But hopefully you enjoyed our thoughts on Creepshow 2. We are working through the Omen franchise this month, so you're probably going to get an Omen movie pretty soon. And there's extra bonus episodes. Every month there's a bonus episode, an exclusive episode on Patreon or via YouTube membership. But for Octoberthon, we like to do some extras, and we've got 3 coming out over the course of this month. One's came out so far, I believe, by the time this goes out, and there's still 2 to come. So, yeah, good fun. So, that is the show, everyone. Like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, and let us know what you think of Creepshow 2 in the comments. We always like to hear what your feelings and thoughts are on the movies. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies. Happy Octoberthon, and we will see you next time.